extremely meaningful, growth-oriented event. For those that don't know me, my name is Aaron Shasha. I am the Dean of Students in the middle school at Barkai Yeshiva. And I am super excited for tonight. And the reason why I am so excited for this event is because everybody in this room is in for an amazing treat. I have had the personal privilege and fortitude to personally be coached and mentored by every single person on this panel. And I can vouch for the fact that they are all beyond fantastic. They are truly experts in education. We are so privileged to have them leading our yeshiva. And with that, I'm going to formally introduce our panel. So firstly, we have Rabbi Richard Tobias, who is our head of school at the Barkai High School. I can't tell you how exciting it is to say such a thing. I never thought I would be saying such a thing. I'd like to thank Richie Shalney, our president, and the board of trustees for organizing and doing all of the efforts to get us to this level, so we can give a round of applause to our board and our president. Rabbi Richard Tobias is my personal rabbi. He is somebody that I've challenged many, many times over and over. He can attest to it. The questions that I've asked him sometimes really should be kept off the record. But Rabbi Tobias, throughout, always has something insightful to say, always has something interesting to help enlighten and to enrich the Torah text and life as a whole. And so we're very lucky to have Rabbi Richard Tobias leading our high school effort. Next up, we have Rabbi Albert Seton, who is our Rav Yeshiva of Barkai. We're so fortunate to have Rabbi Seton. This is only Rabbi Seton's second year. I mentioned this on the family Shabbatot for those that were there. It feels like he's been with us for over 10 years. Every time we're in a meeting, it's just he knows us so well. He is super supportive. I've never met a person who is so dedicated to genuinely wanting to help those around him. He helps myself and everybody in our yeshiva on a daily basis. And so we're very lucky to have Rabbi Seton leading our school as Rav Yeshiva. Sharon Esses, who is my partner in crime in middle school as the middle school principal. She also recently last year took on general studies principal at lower school. Sharon Esses is a firecracker. She is, when she wants something done, she is going to get it done. When she took over middle school, she asked for just 4 years. Give me 4 years, and within one, it was turned around. She revamped our school as a whole, and we're very lucky to have the expertise of Sharon Esses leading our middle school and lower school. Mrs. Sarah Rosenfeld, our head of school at the elementary school. You know, this is my 11th year working at Barkai. And there were times in my first year working in the school as just a gym teacher that I was fascinated with what I was learning just observing teachers. And there were many times where I was really intrigued and I wanted to learn and understand more, and I would just barge into Sarah's office and I would say, Sarah, I saw the most amazing thing happening in class. I don't really get it. I don't have a formal degree in education. Can you help me understand what I just saw? And she always gave me her time. She always gave me her patience. And I know she does the same for all of the educators that work at Barkai. So Sarah Rosenfeld, thank you. And lastly, we have Mr. Tokayer. Mrs. Tokayer was my high school principal. And you can always count on her to have her warm, energetic smile that she always has on her face. Her infectious love for Torah and for Israel is palpable and tangible, and we all benefited so much from her presence. And we're very excited that she's joining our high school staff as the associate principal. So welcome, Mrs. Esther Tokayer. I'd like to just quickly explain the format of the night so everybody is in the know about how it's going to work. We're going to start off with some questions that were submitted. Then I will address the panel and I will select who will be answering the questions. After that, we're going to open the floor to any parent in the audience who wishes to ask a question. I was asked to make a note that we are recording tonight's panel, but for the questions at the end of the night, we will pause the video. This way, if anybody is camera shy, hopefully you shouldn't be embarrassed to ask a question. And then lastly, Rabbi Richard Tobias is going to address the entire room on the latest Barkai High School efforts. So that is going to be our night. And with that, I'm going to start with the first question, which will be directed towards Rabbi Richard Tobias. The panel is titled, Raising Balanced Children in an Unbalanced World. Rabbi Tobias, can you define what that means? What does it mean to live in an unbalanced world?
So I think, I want to believe that the world used to have honest discourse. There was always politics, there was always disagreement, people always fought, but there was always room to disagree, and disagreement was left in whatever room the disagreement happened, and then we went out for coffee. The world as it exists today, in my mind, there's no room for disagreement. There's a very strong left, and there's a very strong right, and the middle is becoming much less populated. And what that does is that our children feel the need to espouse one of the two sides, even though they may not agree with those beliefs. Because they're sitting in a college classroom and the professor tells you that if you believe in God, you're delusional and you're also going to get an F. And so they begin to subconsciously agree with, adopt those unbalanced opinions and ideas. And there is no room for them to create a nuanced approach to life. So when we're raising our children and we're trying to integrate all of the values of Torah and of the world that we know, and then they go out into the world and those values are challenged because, pick a side, man. Either you're here or you're out the door. It becomes a problem because then they begin to question all of the things that we have tried so hard to instill in them. So I believe that when we say an unbalanced world, it means that there's really no space for us and for our children to have a nuanced and balanced approach to life, because if you want to be accepted anywhere, you're forced to pick a side.
Thank you, Rabbi. So now that we have some context about living in an unbalanced world, so we'd like to now understand, what does it mean to have a balanced child? So to help us define that, I'm going to turn to Mrs. Sharon Esses, and then to Mrs. Esther Dover.
So when I think of a balanced child, I think of a child that lives by a set of values. So when they go out into this unbalanced world, they have a framework that directs them. So let's say a value of honesty, that's something that's been taught to them at home, at school, to instill in them, and they have to go out into this world and make a decision. Something that's guiding them, and that's very securing for a child and helps them with the way they make their decisions in life and go in a direction. I also think that developing a strong self of identity for the child is very important. It helps them feel more balanced. Having a strong self-identity, they know where they're coming from, they know where they're going. It makes them feel confident in the world. Research actually shows that developing a strong self-identity serves as a buffer for all those things that we fear as parents. Addiction, peer pressure. When they have that strong self-identity, they feel confident and they feel stronger in themselves to go out into the world. So I think that's how I would define a balanced child.
Maybe I need it? Okay, fine. So I wanted to focus then, based on what Sharon had to say, I want to give you maybe 3 tools that you can use. And it's funny, I'm looking around at the people in the room, you all know a lot. So you'll forgive me if I'm telling you something that you already know. So one, in terms of helping our children have that identity and those values, one of the things that I think is the most important is especially for our generation that our parents did not have to deal with, is the cell phone. And I'm not going to talk about our children's use of the cell phone. I'm going to talk about for a minute our use of the cell phone, and I'll share that I am guilty also, is that sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's hard to put down your cell phone. We're very busy and we're very important. And there are things that are going on in our lives that sometimes need our immediate attention. So we think that it's okay that when we're having a conversation with our 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-old, mommy's just going to check her cell phone for a second and I'm expecting an important text. That sends a message to our children. So one of the tools that I would like to maybe suggest for all of us is if we can carve out 10 minutes. 10 minutes is more time than you actually think. And you put your cell phone down, and they put their cell phone down far away from you. Like sometimes we tell our kids not to sleep with their cell phone next to them, or put it in the closet and close the door. The cell phone away so that you can completely and totally focus on the conversation that you're having with your child. That's one. 2, boys and girls are different. So, and I'm learning that more as my now 13-year-old boy is becoming a teenager, and I'm having a lady who's sitting in the back party. But William Powell wrote in Real Boys that it's fascinating. If you talk to young ladies, they'll like to sit over a cup of coffee or a croissant, and they'll have a conversation with you. Boys are not the same way. Boys would much rather have a conversation with you by accident. So in other words, if you went to the grocery store and you're driving back and they're looking out the window, they'll tell you things that they would never tell you if they were looking at you in the face. Because it's a little intimidating for whatever reason for boys. So why when boys get together, they'll usually play basketball. They're not sitting around on the couches in the living room having cookies or fruit or whatever it is that they're having. So to give your boys an opportunity to have that conversation with you that's meaningful, do something with them. Reorganize, I don't know, the books on the bookshelf, the toys in the basement, help them, let them help you unpack the groceries. But do something so that it gives them the opportunity that they don't feel pressured to tell you something. That's 2. And 3, I'm going to borrow something from my husband. There are a few really cool books out there. One of them is called What If? That's really about halachic stuff. But Norman Ansel has written a book about ethical dilemmas. So when you talk about value building, sometimes it's uncomfortable. If I'm talking to my kid about how everybody treats this one kid in class, are they nice, they're not nice. But if I did an ethical dilemma that had absolutely nothing to do with my child, but somebody else's ethical dilemma, then we can have a conversation. Then we can figure out our values, and it's not challenging the child themselves, but it's allowing them to intellectualize it and then to build it in as they go. So I'll just click. Cell phones away for 10 minutes with each child. If you can tonight, it's an awesome thing. 2, when you're having a conversation, boys like to be doing something while they're talking to you and not necessarily looking at you in the face. And 3, if you can find an ethical dilemma, or you can find a story to share with your kids so they can talk about it and it's not really directly about them, it helps them build their values.
Okay, thank you for that. So now that we have a good understanding about the unbalanced world that we're living in, the ideal balanced child that we're all ideally looking to cultivate and to develop, I'd now like to move on to one of the most important people in the education process, and I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize this room, our parent partners. All of you are amazing. We genuinely enjoy every phone call, even though most people panic and stress when I personally call them. I know, I'm sorry, but it's not always to tell you what's not working. But when I think about the next question, a concept that comes to mind is, what are we doing as parents? Are we busy building houses, or are we busy building a home? And the next question is, how do we ensure that our children are living by the values that we try so very hard to instill in them? We're going to first turn it over to Mrs. Sarah Rosenfeld, and then Rabbi Albert Seddon will follow up.
Thank you, Erin. So, I would say a few things. First, when they do studies about teenagers and risky behaviors, and what are the protective factors that help teenagers and prevent them from getting into risky behaviors, they talk about two things. One is having a strong family bond. So being bonded with your family, spending time with your family, being connected to your family. And the second thing is having conversations around values with your family. So it's not just about spending time together, it's about what you do with that time and the conversations that happen with that time. It's about being open and transparent with your children. It's a little bit of what Esther said about having those conversations and being very open and saying, you know, what does our family feel about this topic? What are our values as a family? This ethical dilemma came up. Let's talk about how you would approach it. It's also about living that life. So when you go to the store and the storekeeper gives you too much change, you talk to your children about it, and you talk out loud almost through through the experience. So you say, oh, they gave me too much change. I'm a block away. What do you think I should do? Should I go back? It's a little bit inconvenient for me to go back, but if I don't go back, then that storekeeper is probably going to be short in change, and what's the right thing to do? So it's really about having those conversations. In a three-word answer, it's really Friday night dinner. So it's that's where you can build a connection, where you're making sure that the family is together, you're always bonding as a family, and you're having those conversations around values.
I'm going to build on what Sarah said by giving an anecdote that I think is a nuanced anecdote. When I'm back in my ideal days, they used to have football on Sundays. Okay, so my son was in football on Sundays, I would take him, except this Sunday was Erev Kippur. So it's Erev Kippur, so I'm sitting there at a football game watching my son playing. So I brought a book I brought a sefer to the game because it's Erev Kippur, I want to be learning. And a congregant from Westfield came over to me, and he, in the most sincere way, he said, Rabbi, you don't understand. You don't get these times back. This is the time to close the book and to spend time with your son. So I smiled, and I waited till he left to open the book again. And to me, in the back of my head, I was thinking, you know when I spend time with my son? When it's something I care about. So when we go to synagogue together, I spend time with my son. I don't care what my son performs in the football game. Now, I'm not saying we all need to have this value, but the point being is that it's not that I don't spend time with my son, it's that I'm going to spend time on what I actually value. And I think that's really building on what Sarah said. They need to know what you value and the attention you give them when they're doing the things that you value tells them, okay, so this is something important. So yeah, thank God, after a couple of years, my son decided he didn't want to do football anymore. He's very happy to save my Sundays. And he goes to shul. And that's what I care about. And, you know, thank God. And I think for all of us to recognize what do I actually care about, and the limited time that I have, make sure I'm focused on what I want my child to know that I care about.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Rabbi. So moving on to understanding the balanced child. I know Mrs. Esther Tokayer previously mentioned the concept of social media, and certainly, just by looking at everybody's faces, this is a really big issue that we're all dealing with in real time currently. And to help paint the backdrop to understanding the significance of the problem, I want to share a very quick story of a conversation that I once had with a student who graduated years ago. We were planning out his nightly routine. He wasn't getting his homework done. And so we mapped out his night, and we looked at, minute by minute, what his night looked like. And by the end of this scheduled forecasting, we recognized he spends 5 hours on technology, about 15 minutes eating dinner, 30-minute shower, etc., etc. And there wasn't really much time for homework. And I asked him, I said, we have to cut away from something, foolishly thinking that 5 hours of technology time would be the go-to category to chop from. And he said, maybe I could eat less dinner. I said, are you planning to eat for negative 45 minutes? Because the math is just not there. So recognizing the balance that is so needed regarding social media, the next question is very simply, what can we do? What are the tangible pieces of advice that we can recommend to our parent partners about how we can help manage this difficulty and this challenge that all of us seem to be facing with when it comes to social media and technology time? We're going to turn this question to Mrs. Sarah Rosenfeld.
So first I'm going to say that it's almost impossible to limit our children's cell phone time. And that's for 2 reasons. One is they're much smarter than us. So a few years ago when my oldest son was in probably 3rd, 4th grade, we put in a Disney Circle. And the Disney Circle is supposed to help you limit screen time, and it limits their access to the internet, it limits their cell phone time, and we programmed it and we were so excited, we're going to take control over this whole problem. Within a day, I got a text alert. Evan has left the circle. What does that mean? I didn't leave the circle. So I turned to Evan and I'm like, Evan, I got an alert today. It said you left the circle. He goes, yeah, Mom, what do you think? That's going to really, you think you're going to be able to control me that way? But he said, let me make a deal with you. If you let me leave the circle, I won't teach my brothers how to leave the circle. So, no matter what controls we try to put in place, they really are smarter than us and they'll figure out a way around us. So, that's a little part of the answer, but that can't be our whole strategy. The other piece is that the people who design the technology understand our brains better than we do. And they spend hours and hours creating algorithms and figuring out ways to pull us in so that when you're playing Candy Crush, you have to play one more game because it's just, your brain is firing and they figured out how to get you to scroll through one more thing on Instagram and get you to hold onto your phone for 1 more minute. So it really is hard to put it down. And what we can do, as opposed to trying to say you have 3 hours on your phone, and that's your limit, would be to go the opposite way and pre-commit to specific times where they are cell phone free, where they're device free.
So as we navigate through the technology realm, it makes me think about what our children are exposed to, what they have access to, who is providing our children with information, and what exactly are they getting educated on. Now we know, living as Jews, apartheid, that the Torah is our guidebook, is our framework. We process all information through the lens of Torah. So to counter the technology challenges, the question that I'd like to pose, what can we do to uplift our children and their spiritual connection to our Torah, to our Hachamim, to all of what our religion has to offer to help build this balanced child and to counteract some of the external ideas that are counterproductive to our children's well-being. We're going to first turn to Rabbi Albert Satin, and then we'll turn to Mrs. Sharon Esses.
So I'm going to use a little bit of a cliche, but I think it's important to keep this in mind. And that is, think about your own Friday night table. Think about the experiences that you're able to have with your child in a religious setting. And ever since we started having children, my wife and I, all we wanted our children to do was to go to sleep on Friday night. So, okay, right? And they wouldn't, once they turned 2, they wouldn't go to sleep. They wouldn't go to sleep, but they see the table set, so they're not going to sleep. So you don't set the table, but then they figure out it's a disaster. But the point being is that they want to be there because this is where the parents are focused. This is where the parents are. And in Judaism, we have a beautiful opportunity to give them experiences within the confines of Judaism. Randomly, take a child to Silichot, whatever it may be. Spend time with them in a positive way, in an experience, as opposed to tell them, go to shul. Be with them. And once you do that, it changes the whole dynamic of creating positive experiences. I'll just give you one last little example. I had the privilege of spending Friday night dinner with the Rosenfelds a couple of weeks ago. And David Rosenfeld did something I thought was the most beautiful thing I ever saw. Instead of just blessing the children, he gives them a personal message every Friday night. That's such a powerful thing for a parent connected to their child, taking that experience of Shabbat and building the relationship. What child doesn't want to be on the Friday night table when you create that loving experience? So think about the experiences and how we can bring it into our children's lives.
You know, when we think of character traits we want all our children to have, we think of all these positive character traits, and children are not born with all of those. You know, they have to be developed. And the way they're developed is by teaching, instilling, and being role models to our children. And we're so lucky to be part of our beautiful religion that instills midot. And by teaching it to the children and really role modeling those midot day in, day out, I think really connects the children to religion and spirituality. It makes them proud to be who they are and to own it. So we say these things, but I think it happens every day. It's every day having them see you do something positive, having them see their parents, their siblings, grandparents doing something for others. I think helps connect them to their religion.
Okay, and this brings us to our last planned question of the night, and then we will open up to parents after our relationship to advise. Parents, advice. Got it. So, we've talked a lot about these unbalanced conditions that we are all a part of, the ideal balanced child that we are looking to cultivate and to develop. At some point down the road, our children leave our small confines, these small bubbles that we create for our children within our community, whether it's a community school, shul, organization, and the question of what does life look like post-high school for our children. So the question is, what are our thoughts about sending our children to colleges, given the current landscape of what it looks like out there? And what should we be looking for? What are the tangible ideas that we can offer to parents in regards to sending our children to college campuses with the current landscape?
So obviously the college situation has gotten a lot more complicated in the last number of years. Certainly we want our kids to go to college, certainly we want them to have that experience. That said, the colleges look very different than they did when we attended them 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. So I think the first thing that parents have to do is they need to understand the reality of what is happening on the college campuses that they're sending them to. And you gotta do your due diligence. Don't assume that the college that you went to looks the same as it did when you were there, because I can tell you that it most definitely does not. Assuming you are sending to a college that may have a difficult college campus, it's imperative to instill in the child the skills and the tools to make it. And I think that really becomes incumbent on the schools. I think that we need to make sure our students know how to respond when there's apartheid week on a campus. Our kids need to know how to respond when the professor in the room challenges the notion of free will that they learned about in Jewish philosophy. We need, as parents and as educators, to make a conscious effort to make sure that if we're sending our students to those colleges, they know how to withstand the pressures. And I will tell you from myself, I went to graduate school as a rabbi, and it was hard. You 1 in 100 that needs a kosher meal, and I am not having it any other way. But they need to have the confidence to be able to do that. And I think that's really a lot of what we've been focusing on tonight. Alternatively, I think we need to start thinking about some of the other colleges that may not have been in our radar up until this point. Yeshiva University is making tremendous strides in the Sephardic community. I think it should be something that's on people's minds. There are other campuses as well that do a very good job at understanding what's happening and making sure that all of their students are feeling comfortable. So yes, we definitely want to send them to college. We certainly want them to strive. We certainly believe it's incredibly important, but we do as parents need to do our due diligence to figure out how to make sure that they survive. I'll give you one anecdote, which is a very unfortunate one. A number of years ago, a student who used to learn with me every single day was graduating from high school, and he told me he's going to a certain college. I said, please don't go to that school. Brilliant kid. I said, please don't go to that school. Rabbi, I got it. This is a kid who's learning 2-3 hours a day. 2 years in, the parents call me and say, my kid is calling every day, he wants to come home. He just wants to get out of it. So I called the kid, we had a conversation. Called the parents back, and I said, this is a cry for help. There's something going on, and if you don't bring him home, you're gonna lose your kid. They brought him home. We unpacked the story. He was dating a Goya and close to moving further in that relationship, and completely lost everything that he had built in 12 years worth of yeshiva education. That's not to say you shouldn't send your kids to college. That is to say that you need to be very conscious of who your child is, where you are sending them, and what we as educators and parents need to give them to make sure that the kid you send is the same kid you get back.
Thank you, Rabbi Tobias. So that concludes the...
We decided we're going to open a high school.
Yeah.
Because the time has come to further the journey, and that is what we are embarking on. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will be opening our doors in 1 year from now, September 2023. I'm honored to be tagged with leading that initiative as the head of school. And I am more honored to be continuing working with a woman who has decades of experience in high school education and administration, who was a friend, a colleague, and a role model in every sense of the term. Mrs. Esther Bakay, joining us as our associate principal. I'm also happy to announce that Rabbi Zamalani is joining our high school team as curriculum development and education. We are currently in the midst of doing heavy interviewing for other administrative positions and guidance positions, and after the holiday we will be opening up for our full-fledged faculty. So thank God the resumes are coming in, and there's been a lot of positive excitement and energy around what we are doing. The high school location, which I am not at liberty to divulge at the moment, and I am not dodging the question, we are very close to solidifying all of the details that need to be solidified in Be'ezrat Hashem in the next couple of weeks. We'll be able to make that announcement, but we are excited about the location, and we think it's going to be a great spot for our high school students. And once Richie says I can say it, right now that's not the case. In terms of facilities, our boys and girls will be sharing the same facility. They will be interacting with each other throughout the day in multiple venues, lunch, clubs, activities, programs, and a leadership seminar course that we are putting together for them. Classes themselves, they will be separated. In 11th and 12th grade, as they take electives and APs and their student choice and voice in what they want to take, they will be coming together in the classroom as they prepare for college and beyond, as we create a nuanced approach to ensuring that our students have a healthy atmosphere to interact with each other, and at the same time maintaining the ability for them to have self-expression and confidence and grow religiously and spiritually. So pulling together both worlds in what we believe is raising a balanced and nuanced child. Barkai Yeshiva High School is open to all students, not just Barkai Yeshiva students. We understand that means that students are coming in with different skills and different tools and different backgrounds. which would require differentiated instruction, which is the way education should work anyway, because not everybody learns the same, and not everybody is coming with the same tools. And in that regard, our Judaic Studies program will be a Bet Midrash approach to learning, which means that our students will be spending much more time in small groups and chevrutot than sitting at a desk listening to the rabbi. We want them engaging with the text and with each other, becoming involved in the learning and falling in love with the learning and building the skills to become independent learners. We want them to be engaged with a Judaism that is relevant and breathing and conscious, and that they are excited by day in and day out. And that will allow each of them to shine in their own way based on their own skills. General studies, we will have tracking, so we will have multiple classes per agenda per grade, so that again, every child can be placed in an appropriate learning environment and can learn in a fashion that best suits them. Our planned number per grade is between 80 and 100. We very strongly believe that that is the balance between an intimate setting where a child can get the focus and attention that they need. Everybody knows everybody's name. But at the same time, it's big enough that we can have all the sporting events and all the curricular, extracurricular activities and all the clubs and a social environment where we are big enough to do those kinds of things and small enough to be able to call ourselves a continued family. So those are the numbers that we're looking at. I just wanted to share a little bit about what I've learned about Archai in the last few weeks. So my children, some of them have gone through the system and graduated, and many of them are still in Archai. So I always knew, just as a parent, that Archai was very special. But I couldn't put my finger specifically on why. And the last 2 weeks, I spent a lot of time in the building with kids, in the middle school bedroom, whose mirror comes up to my belly button. And I've learned a lot. And it really has told me what makes Archai different and what the task at hand is in creating a high school that is going to be unique and special and different. And there are 5 things that I want to do. Number 1, Barkai is teaching children to be self-aware and to have a strong sense of identity. And I realized it on 2 occasions. A few days ago, we were praying in the Bet Midrash, which is not the regular location that we should have been praying in. And at the end of Tefillah, Coach Aaron got up to tell the kids that tomorrow we're going back to the regular schedule, which in a normal school setting, that would be the end of the announcement. Today we pray here, whatever, tomorrow we're going back, make sure you're there. But instead of just doing that, he continued to explain to the students that the reason for the change was because there's another program scheduled in that room, and even though we probably could have cleared the room in time, in order to be sensitive to the fact that another group of students is coming into this room, and not to infringe on their time, we made a decision to move, and tomorrow we're moving back. So I turned an announcement into a life lesson. Because now the kid understands when I'm making a decision, I need to think about the people around the circle, not just me. And then later that day, I was sitting in the library on the computer doing work, and 2 girls come in, and they're giggling, and they're laughing, and they're looking for books. And then they sit down at the table, and one of them turns to me and says, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Are we disturbing you?" Like, whose kid is this? And I said, "No, it's okay. I'm good." And she said, "If at any point we're disturbing you, please let us know and we'll find another place to go." Kids in 2nd grade. If that's a child who's been given the value of understanding what's going on around her, she's self-aware and has the confidence to be able to tell a man who she never saw before that she feels that she never disturbed her. Second is Sephardic tradition. So I was amazed. You walk into Tefillah in the morning, and there's a big poster board on the table with an account of the day, and then whatever parts of the Tefillah are going to be sung, there's the name of the song from the red Gizmon book next to it, And that's the tune that you should sing for that given part of the tefillah. And they give out parts to the kids, and they initiate that song. Okay, but you have to unpack that for a second. That means the kid knows what song you're referencing and the tune, and is then connecting it to the tefillah. Now I'm looking at the board, I don't know what half the songs sound like. I know what they sound like when we start them, but I have no idea what about 2 words mean start this song. And they tell me I'm a rabbi, but otherwise I have no idea what's going on. This kid's in 8th grade, he's got the tunes down pat. Who else does that? Sephardic tradition is a culture. It's not a tagline, it's not a subject. It's who Barkai is. Third, there is a sense of happiness in the building that is tangible. First day I walked into school, the Benot Shelut are there, and there's balloons, and there's an archway, and they're singing and they're dancing. And then I walked in the second day, and the Benot Shelut girls are there, and there's balloons and an archway, and they're singing and dancing. And now it's the 7th day of school, and we're still doing this. They greet you every single day. It's an incredible, incredible feeling. And then Friday, I was in the library, and they're sitting in the cafeteria, and they're having Kabbalat Shabbat, and the room is jumping. They're singing, they're laughing. I was pumped for Shabbat. There's a happiness that is palpable. The kids are excited. They love what's happening. They're excited to see their teachers, and everybody's in a good mood. It's a little unnerving, but everybody's in a good mood. Third, is Barkai is creating students who are nuanced. They're asking questions that should not be asked, or you would not assuming is being asked by a middle school or elementary school student. And I think it goes back to what we've been saying. They're teaching children to be thoughtful. They're teaching children to read between the lines. They're teaching children to have the confidence that when you don't understand something, raise your hand and ask. Because the only way you're going to find out the answer is if you have the goal to challenge the person who told you the information, but you don't understand it, so raise your hand. It's an incredible thing to watch. And last is integration. At Barkai, somehow they're able to bring everything together. So again, you're sitting in Kabbalat Shabbat, and there's math, science, history, halacha, and tefillah all happening in the same place. And it sends an incredible lesson to our children that the world is not compartmentalized, as Coach Aaron said. When you're building a house, it's not just math. Everything that you learn goes into that activity. They're integrating in a conscious way that brings everything together, that teaches children that the world is not black and white. The world overlaps and is very much multiple shades of gray. And only those who can discern between the shades of gray can really navigate life in an intellectual fashion. Every school does a very good job of teaching content. And every school is going to get their kids into college. But there's one thing I learned about Barkai that I think has to reign supreme as we join together to build a high school. And that is that we are not teaching content. We are teaching people. And when you have that in mind, then it's a dynamic experience. Just because we did it last year this way, it doesn't mean we have to do it this year this way. Because the same way you don't think the same when you're 15 as you do when you're 16, things change. And the beauty of building a school from the bottom up is there's no red tape. There's no, it has to be this way because we've done it for 20 years. There's no policies that we need an entire team to change the ship. We're starting from the bottom up. And this is an incredibly exciting time to get involved in something that is going to change the landscape of education in this community. I really do believe that. If I didn't, I wouldn't have jumped in myself. But I believe that the foundation that Barkai is building is so incredibly strong that there's nowhere else for it to go but up. And I will end, if I can, B'shut with something very Torah to wrap up the evening. In Parashat Be'eshit, Adam names all of the creatures. And then the story of the sin of the Etz Hadat happens, and Adam and Chava are told that they're going to die. The sin introduced